My name is Chandrasekhar Singh. Imagine the world plunges into World War III, a war of nuclear arms, and all of the world's drinking water supply gets irradiated with bad radiation. How do we get clean drinking water? The answer is hydrogen fuel cells. In this speech, I'm going to talk about the parts that make up a hydrogen fuel cell and how they come together to make the cell work, and state some of the main uses of a hydrogen fuel cells. The components of a hydrogen fuel cell includes a polymer electrolyte membrane, flow plates, an anode, a cathode, and hydrogen and oxygen. The polymer electrolyte membrane functions as an electrolyte, which only lets positive charge ions across its membrane. The anode and the cathode are electrodes. The anode is where the electron loss occurs, and the cathode is where the cathode is where the electron gain occurs. The flow plates conduct the electrons from the anode to the cathode. Oxygen and hydrogen can be thought of as the fuel for the fuel cell, kind of like how gasoline is the fuel for a car engine. Now that we know the parts that make up a hydrogen fuel cell, let's see how they come together to make the cell work. According to the government website, energy.gov, this is the chemical process of a hydrogen fuel cell. At the anode, hydrogen is fed into the cell. At the cathode, oxygen is fed into the cell. The hydrogen is separated from the electrons, and the hydrogen atom travels across the membrane to the cathode. Electrons then travel through a flow plate to the cathode, and this causes the electrical current. At the cathode, the electrons arrive and then bonds with the oxygen and the hydrogen. This results in water and heat being a byproduct of this chemical reaction. Now that we know how the cell works, let's look at some of the real-world applications. According to NASA's webpage editor, Kathleen Zona, NASA has been working with hydrogen fuel cells since 1958. They use it in the space shuttles to power its electronic systems, and it also provides drinking water for the crew. Looking forward into the future of hydrogen fuel cells, Time magazine author Eric Roston writes that there's a prototype house that runs completely on hydrogen fuel cells, and it only costs about 20% of the grid power that we use now, such as Con Edison. And hydrogen fuel cells can also be applied to iPods and battery-operated handheld devices. To recap, we've learned the parts of a hydrogen fuel cell, how they come together to make the fuel cell work, and the uses of a hydrogen fuel cell. I've explained the chemical process of how the hydrogen fuel cell works and how it produces water and conducts electricity. Thank you.
Leave that up there.